Everyone in the aerospace industry knows that spacecraft are bound to have their fair share of challenges. But what happens when a spacecraft faces one challenge after the other with almost no hope in sight? This spacecraft is none other than the Boeing Starliner. For those who are unfamiliar with the Boeing Starliner or CST-100, it is a group of partially reusable spacecraft designed to transport crew and cargo to the International Space Station, the ISS, and other low-orbit destinations. The spacecraft can hold a crew of 7 and even stay docked on the ISS for up to 7 months. Along with the SpaceX Crew Dragon, NASA selected the Starliner for its commercial crew program. But considering the various issues affecting Starliner, will Boeing eventually decide to give up on this spacecraft? What does NASA have to say about all these issues? And most importantly, what future lies ahead for Starliner? Well, stick around to the end of this video as we address these issues and provide answers to these questions. But before we dig deep into these issues, let's pause a little. This is Space Mind's channel where we help you discover space mysteries and take you on exciting adventures. If you love rockets, galaxies, and everything in between, this channel is for you. So hit that subscribe button and join us on this intergalactic adventure. Also, don't forget to ring the bell so you can get notified every time we post. Now, let's start by answering the question you're all probably thinking. How did one of the lead customers of NASA get to this point? Well, the Starliner has indeed had a rough past. It all started with its first orbital flight test on December 20th, 2019. Shortly after the spacecraft's separation, the unexpected happened. There was a glitch in the software controlling the internal timer of the spacecraft that caused it to think it was much further in the mission than it actually was. As a result, the Starliner missed the orbital insertion burn. In the end, it failed to dock with the ISS as intended. Because of that, after orbiting the Earth 33 times, Starliner eventually landed at White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico, 2 days after launch. In April 2020, Boeing announced that it would be conducting a second uncrewed demonstration mission tagged OFT-2. By August 2020, they mentioned that they were making great progress with the modifications to the Starliner and were looking at a possible launch of the OF-2 by December 2020 or January 2021. But by December, they faced even more roadblocks with software issues which made them postpone the launch date to March 2021 and subsequently to August 2021. With these postponements, you'd think that the launch of the OF-2 would be uninterrupted. Unfortunately, Boeing faced even more setbacks when the malfunctioning propulsion system valves forced it to return the spacecraft to the factory for more work. But this didn't stop them. Despite these obstacles, Boeing was able to replace its entire service module, which allowed for the launch of the OFT-2 on May 19, 2022. Even after this, their mission to dock with the ISS was barely successful, as 2 orbital maneuvering and attitude control system (OMACs) thrusters failed during the orbital insertion burn. Eventually, the Boeing Starliner safely returned to Earth on May 25, 2022. After barely succeeding on this mission, NASA and Boeing announced their intention to launch a crewed flight test in February 2023. This was after they had addressed the recommendations on how to improve the condition of the Starliner. However, the crewed flight test encountered even more issues than the last one. The test was pushed back after 2 failed launches caused by issues ranging from problems with the parachute harness to problems with an oxygen valve on the ULA Atlas rocket. On June 1, 2024, they attempted another launch. Just when things were looking up for the Starliner, the craziest thing happened. Boeing had to abort the mission 3 minutes and 50 seconds prior to liftoff due to a hardware fault in a launch computer on the ground. It was almost looking like the launch wouldn't happen again that month. But by June 5th, the crewed flight took off and the Starliner successfully docked with the ISS. Sadly, this success didn't mark the end of Starliner's troubles. Due to the failure of 5 of its maneuver thrusters, the Starliner has spent over 50 days at the ISS. This is about 6 times longer than the original 8 days it was supposed to spend. With the Starliner experiencing trouble at every turn, what has been NASA's take on the situation? Well, following a press conference, NASA and Boeing's leadership announced that there is no set return date for the 2 astronauts that were on board the Starliner spacecraft. It looks like those astronauts would have to leave Earth to us and make space their new home. Or maybe not so. Well, the astronauts would have to at least stay until both NASA and Boeing can figure out the reason behind the issues that the spacecraft keeps having. Luckily, some progress has been made in that regard. In the meantime, NASA and Boeing engineers have uncovered problems with the Starliner, such as helium leaks and thruster failures, which are the major factors contributing to these delays. Their investigations have shown that heat building up in the thrusters may have caused the Teflon seals to bulge, restricting the flow of propellant. These findings have also prompted them to decide that it might not be best to allow the astronauts to manually fly the Starliner on their way home, because this could put some stress on the thrusters. Following these findings, there have been reports that the crew won't be back until August at the earliest. There has also been rumor that the astronauts are stuck in space, which NASA has debunked. But with the Starliner only having about 45 days of docking time left, it's difficult to say whether NASA and Boeing will be able to fix all the issues before time runs out. They might eventually have to turn to the alternative, meaning a request from Big Brother SpaceX for assistance to bring the astronauts back home. If the scenario above plays out, then the future of Starliner might become even more bleak than it seems now. Even if Boeing succeeds in bringing the astronauts back, the Starliner is still fraught with many difficulties, which might cause Boeing to give up on the project. Why is that? Well, it turns out helium leaks and thruster failures are not the only issues the Starliner program is facing. The Boeing Starliner barely raises any profit for the company, and now the company has to bear all the costs because the government can no longer fund them. Boeing Starliner is also facing stiff competition from other successful rivals in the launch market, like SpaceX's Dragon. On top of that, the focus of the company has significantly shifted from their space sector, and this was evident in their sale of ULA, a joint venture rocket manufacturing and launch company. I guess you could say that this sale is more or less a step closer to their decision to finally abandon the Starliner. But all this is merely speculation for now. Well, maybe Boeing is eventually giving up on Starliner, but who can blame them? The best part is that this action won't affect them financially as long as they fulfill their 6 assigned missions under their commercial crew contract with NASA. Now, it might seem like Boeing's indifference towards the Starliner may have caused the delays and technical difficulties in developing the spacecraft. But honestly, they are not the only ones to blame for this situation. NASA officials have also admitted that Starliner received less oversight than the SpaceX Dragon. Maybe their familiar relationship was the major cause of this, but then the lack of oversight probably shows some level of complacency on NASA's part. Knowing this now, I guess it's not surprising that the Dragon by SpaceX, a younger private company, has continued to beat the performance of the Starliner. So there you have it. The Boeing Starliner has faced one challenge after the other, causing the company to lose a lot of money and even suffer some damage to its reputation. While some think that the progress that Boeing has been able to record in the space industry with Starliner is commendable, others think that it might be time for them to let go. But what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Space Minds for all the latest space news and updates.